Стартуем. О! Ну, это нам показывает то, что было в 2016-м. В 17-м. Круги шейпера, круги Элдера. Ага. Sixth стакинг. Ага. Почему так говнит звук? Ой. Спасибо за 4 месяца. Почему не так звук говнит? У меня? Странно. Мое дело тоже было. Так, ладно. Новая Лига хоррор будет, посмотрим.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thank you for joining us as we unveil Path of Exile's next big expansion, Siege of the Atlas. Since the Atlas of Worlds was introduced in 2016, we have released 3 large endgame expansions, each evolving Path of Exile's endgame in a different way. Today, I am proud to present our 4th endgame expansion, which launches on PC and Mac on February 4th, and on Xbox and PlayStation on February 9th.
Осада Атласа.
Twitch drops are enabled for today's
Twitch дропсы включены. Кстати, F5 нужно нажать, если что там. Для дропсов надо F5 нажать, чтобы они пошли. Нажал.
Quickly. We'll start with a trailer for Siege of the Atlas, and then dive into learning about the pinnacle bosses you'll face as you explore the new Atlas of Worlds. We'll then talk about the new way you customize your Atlas experience. Rewards are next, with a focus on both the new itemization and crafting possibilities for endgame items, and the new unique and currency items you can earn by defeating the pinnacle bosses. Then we'll cover changes to how the Atlas works with its new game systems, before revealing the Archnemesis Challenge League, which launches alongside Siege of the Atlas. After a summary of what game balance changes we're making in this expansion, we'll have a Q&A session where Ziggy D asks me questions from the community. Finally, we'll post the full patch notes as soon as the live stream ends. Let's check out the trailer for Siege of the Atlas.
Вот чего. О май.
Cirrus is dead.
Сирус мертв.
Zana has chosen exile.
Решила свалить.
But the Atlas of Worlds remains a beacon for Eldritch horrors.
Но Атлас остается
We imprisoned the Elder.
угрозой для всяких элдричных мужиков. Мы победили Элдера, Мэйвен. Мы готовились к приходу следующих. Мы не ждали 4. Блин, прикольно. Если мы их не остановим, они поглотят. Все. Это война. За само существование. Атлас в осаде. Новые клевые боссы. Новая механика Атласа. Вау! Новые цены, новые инфлюенсы. Чего? Пассив? Ветка на Атлас? О май. Archnemesis Лига. Целая полноценная ветка на Атлас. Они тут. Стой с нами.
perish.
Или мы все соснем. Вау. Прикольненько. Ну чё, как вам веточка новая?
The events in Siege of the Atlas take place after the defeat of Cyrus. With Zana leaving to pursue her own agenda, Commander Kirik has taken responsibility for defending the Atlas and Rayclust against whatever Eldritch horrors might arrive. Because Oriath was decimated by both Katava and then Cyrus, Kirik has moved several map devices to an isolated island in the Karui archipelago, and has established a militia in order to prevent another event like the Cyrus incident. In this expansion, you will join Kirik's militia and will be asked to scout.
Мы будем милиционерами Хилока и будем патрулировать Атлас.
You will learn that two more eldritch horrors like her or the Elder are on their way to the Atlas. Unlike her though, their intentions are driven by the need to consume absolutely everything they encounter. You must learn what you can do about these entities and attempt to prevent the existential threat they pose to Rayclust. In Siege of the Atlas, the two new eldritch horrors are the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. These are similar to other pinnacle Atlas bosses of the past, such as the Elder, the Shaper, the Maven, and Cyrus. You will hunt down these two bosses and their sub-bosses, the Black Star and the Infinite Hunger. You will be able to pursue both eldritch horrors at the same time, you can choose which you are pursuing on a map-by-map basis. In mid-tier maps, you'll randomly encounter the influence of either the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds.
На средних тирах карт мы будем двух рандомных низких встречать.
She will modify your map device so that when entering maps, you can choose to add either the influence of the Maven or any eldritch horror you have encountered.
Короче, теперь мы можем выбирать. Блин, это отстойно, мне не очень нравится, то что нужно так микроменеджить все
это. As you
это.
run subsequent maps influenced by the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds, the amount of influence monsters in those maps increases as that eldritch horror.
Чем больше мы глубже идем, тем больше мы встречать.
The Black Star or the Infinite Hunger, one of the sub-bosses. You must defeat that boss in order to continue progressing closer to the horror you have.
Короче, одного из сабоссов побеждаем.
These bosses have exclusive new unique items in their drop pools. You're likely to have encountered the influence of both horrors by this point and can choose which one you're pursuing in each map. Finally, in the highest tiers of maps, you will encounter the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds.
А на красных тирах мы будем встречать, видимо, самих типа боссов.
If you are able to defeat these extremely difficult foes, they can drop their own exclusive new unique items and eldritch currency items, which we'll describe later in the live stream.
Ага, и у нас будут новые eldritch currency.
Or the Eater of Worlds once, you can then farm them. In order to do so, you must complete a series of tier 14 or above maps with that eldritch horror's influence.
Ну, короче, как только мы один раз вальнули одного из боссов, то можем фармить его. На 14+.
As this key to the fight is tradable, it's not a strict requirement that you slay this first boss, but the item rewards will strongly encourage you to do so. After continuing to farm tier 14 or higher horror-influenced maps, you will receive another tradable key to fight the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds, giving you another shot at their exclusive rewards. The keys to the farmable versions of these bosses can be rolled like regular maps.
Понятно, то есть у нас будет, как только мы первый раз убиваем, то у нас, условно говоря, зеленый квест будет, а потом мы можем грейдить их. Прикольно.
Before we move on, I wanted to go into more detail about what that actually means. In influence maps, as you defeat enemies, altars themed around the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds occasionally appear where you kill those enemies. These altars give you the choice between two options that can either modify your character, influenced monsters, or the boss of the map by increasing rewards but also increasing difficulty. You can encounter multiple altars per area, so sometimes you can
Это типа будут моды, которые прям на карте возникают, и можем прямо находиться на карте, усложнять мапку.
An example of a modification is altering the map boss so that all of its damage shocks, but also causing it to drop an additional eldritch currency item as a reward.
То есть, короче, у нас на новых картах с инфлюенсами на высоких тирах можно будет усложнять типа мапку прямо на мапке. Так, теперь у нас будет стоуны будут вместо Maven камней.
In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed watchstones and have restored the hidden maps back to the base atlas so they don't have to be unlocked over time.
Так.
We've added much of the power from craftable watchstones to Atlas passives so that you can still access the benefits you're used to.
Короче, watchstone'ов старых не будет. Все их основные приколы передвинуты на...
Watchstones being over, we do really like the ability to raise the tier of maps on your Atlas, so that eventually all of them are tier 16. To this end, we have introduced void stones. You can earn up to 4 of these, one each from the Uber Elder, the Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds.
Короче, супер боссов у нас, кстати, watchstone'ы будут. Прикол.
In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed the concept of Atlas regions entirely.
Так.
This means that we're saying goodbye to regional Atlas passive trees.
Регионы идут нафиг, но у нас просто огромная пассивка на Атлас.
Good old path of Exile.
Старый добрый поэт говорит. 117 пассивок. За completion, получается, будут даваться пассивки.
You can also earn some extra ones by completing the Maven's multi-boss fights. Whenever you allocate an Atlas passive skill, its stats apply to every map you run anywhere.
Блин, это класс вообще.
Also, because it's much faster to complete earlier maps on the Atlas, your Atlas point acquisition is pretty front-loaded, letting you quickly establish an Atlas layout that helps you find and profit from your favorite content.
Блин, круто.
We've integrated some skills from past regional Atlas trees and have created several new ones, like Secret Operations, which turns some of the strongboxes you encounter into a new type of strongbox that drops scarabs. Corrupted Gaze causes Abyssal Jewels to sometimes drop Corrupted with 5 or 6 modifiers, rather than a typical 4.
Было прикольно.
Ghastly Devotion guarantees that areas that contain ritual altars will always contain 4 altars. Having one massive Atlas tree means that you can deeply specialize in certain types of content without being limited to what was available in a specific region. You can increase how often you encounter.
Интересно, регреты на это какие будут, специальные или новички в шоке? Давай.
The removal of Atlas regions means that you have more freedom to run the maps you like without being forced into regions of the Atlas that have passives that affect the content you wanted to play.
Да, фактически сейчас ты на любой карте можешь фармить, что хочешь.
Powerful characters are capable of playing very juiced maps, which results in them finding a lot of items, including more maps. Often, they get more maps than they actually need. Weaker characters have to be more careful with what mods they add to their maps. This new Atlas tree lets you choose how much you want to invest in a map tier upgrade that used to be the Atlas completion bonus, which means that powerful characters who don't need extra maps can instead focus those points on improving the rewards from content they play. On the other hand, weaker characters can invest in finding better maps, and can then respec this later on once they're finding a surplus.
Да, круто.
We'll make the full tree available next week so that you can start planning before Siege of the Atlas launches. Every large Path of Exile expansion needs a new way to create the most powerful items in the game.
Eldritch Implicit модификаторы.
Introduces a new endgame item mechanic called Eldritch Implicit Modifiers.
Виталий,
Problem we had with the old Shaper, Elder, and Conqueror influence system was that while the items were extremely powerful, they had to be crafted using highly specialized and complicated methods.
Ну да, проблема была типа с старыми
found on the ground usually wasn't of much value unless it was a certain base type at a specific
не имели сами по себе никакой особой ценности, пока ты их типа специально не закрафтишь.
As they were basically a post-endgame feature. Our new system of Eldritch Implicits allows you to apply Eldritch mods to already good items that you have, so that you have a lot more freedom to choose how you create your best items.
Короче, теперь мы имплисты будем нормально иметь на шмотках. Okay.
As you know, Path of Exile items can have an implicit mod that either comes built into the item based on what type it is, or can be modified with systems such as
есть моды, которые либо какие-то есть на шмотке.
Replace existing implicit mods, but with a twist. An item is allowed to have one Eldritch Implicit from the Searing Exarch and one from the Eater of Worlds at the same time. These implicits have many different tiers and several ways to
Короче, у нас может быть одновременно два разных имплисита. Либо Эмбер, либо Айкор.
Corresponding to the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, respectively. These currency items can be applied to gloves, helmets, body armors, or boots, and overwrite the item's regular implicit mods with new ones from two special powerful modifiers. As I mentioned before, an item can have both a Searing Exarch implicit and an Eater of Worlds implicit at the same time. Applying the same type of orb multiple times will overwrite the appropriate mod.
Офигеть, их еще ролить можно. Вау.
These gloves have a single
8 модов на шмотках, короче.
the ability to gain rage on hit, rate limited by a cooldown.
Офигеть, Rage on Hit.
There are two Eldritch implicit mods on this
Flat.
helmet. The first one simply grants some added fire damage with
Not
spells.
region.
The second implicit causes enemies within a radius near you to be unable to regenerate life.
Это правильный
Each mod
скурш.
has 6 tiers of power. The first 4
6
tiers
тиров.
come from the 4 versions of the Eldritch
4
Ember
тира
and
падают
Echo
с разных
Transient
тиров
items. While the highest 2
валюты.
tiers can only be upgraded to with a special item we'll explain soon.
А апгрейдятся они типа... Короче, на любых картах падают вот эти. Это с боссов, это с инфлюенсом карт. Арба конфликта.
The Maven enter encounters have a chance to drop the Orb of Conflict. When used on an item with 2
Короче,
Eldritch
ивенты
implicits,
с Maven могут дропать
lowers
орбу
the
конфликта.
tier of one implicit mod and increases the tier
И
of
при
the
этом
other.
она понижает
This allows you
тир
to
одного
manipulate
мода
the
и
balance between the
повышает
two
тир
types of
второго мода.
implicits.
Мода, вау. Клево. Клево, клево, клево.
The best possible outcome is to have a tier 6 and a tier 4 mod at the same time.
Короче, да, максимальный лучший outcome это тир 6 или 4.
Highest Eldritch Ember or Eldritch Echo over and over until you have a tier 4 modifier that you want. Then use Orbs of Conflict to try to get it to tier 6.
Да, то есть ты делаешь первого и четвертого тира, грейдишь до 6-го, потом появляешь вторую и 4-го тира и ролишь. Прикольно.
Also, none of the new implicit mods have item level restrictions that prevent them from being applied to an item. There are also conditional versions of Eldritch implicit mods that are only enabled when specific types of enemies are in your presence. These ramp up in power as the condition gets more restrictive. These conditional mods are designed for players who feel that they have sufficient clear speed for easier monsters and want to specialize in being even more effective against the really tough monsters where it matters. Items with Eldritch implicits can also have a property of being dominated by one of the Eldritch horrors. If an item has a higher tier Searing Exarch mod, then it is considered dominated by the Searing Exarch. Conversely, if the mod for the Eater of Worlds is higher tier, then it is considered dominated by the Eater of Worlds.
Если один из модов довольно высокий,
The Eldritch Chaos will reroll the prefixes of an item that is dominated by the Searing Exarch, or the suffixes if the item is dominated by the Eater of Worlds.
у нас будет валюта, чтобы реролить,
The
типа.
Eldritch Exalted Orb and the Eldritch Orb of Annulment, which add or remove a prefix or suffix depending on which horror.
Который добавляет либо префикс, либо суффикс, в зависимости от того, под чьим, типа, кто доминирует над шмоткой. Круто.
It's important to note that you can't apply Eldritch implicit mods to influenced items. By that, I mean items that have the old type of Shaper, Elder, or Conqueror influence.
При этом на инфлюенс шмотки нынешние нельзя добавить новый имплисит.
The Siege of the Atlas expansion contains a whole roster of new unique items, which drop from the 4 new Atlas bosses we have introduced.
Новый
These are
уникальный
powerful
предмет.
uniques, and we'll show you 6 of them today. The Ashes of the Stars Onyx Amulet increases the level of all of your skill gems and grants them an additional 20%
experience
quality.
gain of
It
gems,
also improves the reservation efficiency of your skills
efficiency,
and lets you level all of your gems
плюс 1
faster,
all,
which is really
плюс
useful for
результат
gems such as
quality.
Empower and Enlighten. The big boost to quality is very valuable with some alternate quality gems,
Wow.
as well as certain skills like curses.
Huh.
The Dissolution of the Flesh prismatic jewel changes the way that you interact with incoming damage. While you have this jewel equipped, damage is taken in the form of a temporary reservation to your
Убирает весь
life.
энергощит.
If you reserve 100% of your life, you die. This allows you to ignore life recovery completely, since the actual amount of life you have left is irrelevant as long as you manage the timing of your
Который
life
потерял при
reservation.
получении дэмэджа,
The Polaric
резервируется.
Devastation Opal rank introduces a new debuff called Covered in Frost, and gives you another way to apply the existing Covered in Ash debuff. This is a solid ring for anyone specializing in either fire or cold damage.
When you ignite, you freeze them.
Covered in Frost causes the target
А
to
типа
take
Covered in
20%
Frost
increased
добавили.
cold damage and lowers their critical strike chance.
Уменьшает крит шанс врагов.
The Ceaseless Feast spiked gloves have a new debuff called Corrosion, which you can stack up on enemies to remove their armor and evasion.
Новый дебаф
This is
Corrosion,
not only a
который
great way
убирает
to reduce their
армор
physical damage
и evasion
reduction,
врагов.
but the gloves also have an additional bonus that applies when you have stripped away all of
Хп
the
нет.
enemy's armor or evasion. We are also introducing a pair of very rare aspirational unique jewels, Forbidden
Aspirational
Flame
unique
and Forbidden
jewel.
Flesh. Each of these jewels drops from one of the two new pinnacle Atlas bosses,
Они падают
and they are
с
certainly
супербоссов
unique
новых.
in that they must work together to unlock their potential.
И они типа
They
должны работать
require the
вместе.
user of the jewel to be a specific class, and they roll with a modifier that specifies a random ascendancy skill from one of the ascendancies of that class.
Он типа рандомный ascendancy point.
Both a forbidden flame and a forbidden flesh jewel that specify the same skill, and if you meet the class requirement, then you will be granted that ascendancy skill. For example, if you're a dead eye and find a forbidden flame jewel that specifies the
Типа если здесь рейнджер,
Pathfinder class,
и тут...
then upon finding and equipping a matching forbidden flesh jewel, you will gain the Master Surgeon skill. These jewels open up many new build possibilities.
Тут у тебя одинаковая... Офигеть, это два джуэла, которые тебе дают дополнительный кейстоун в Ascendancy. Пипец, казино, конечно, но это круто. Для трейда это очень... Так. Прикольно, здесь новые задачки будут. И они типа... И они открывают... Это типа... Говорит map дропы.
You can select 12 different maps as your favorite maps, or you can put the same map type in all 12 slots for a massive 120 times boost to its occurrence in your drop.
Вау.
This is particularly powerful.
Короче, тебе нужно, по сути, всякие квестики выполнять, чтобы открывать префер-мапы. И у тебя они постепенно будут появляться. Круто.
Sextants can be found from tier 14 onwards that are applied to voidstones.
Они с Т14 плюс будут падать.
Because voidstones come from the highest tier content, we've removed simple sextants and prime sextants.
Только, ну, короче, оставили только одни секстанты.
We've added the mods from these sextants to the pool of mods that awakened sextants have. Because this dilutes the pool of mods that awakened sextants can roll, we've increased the frequency at which you acquire awakened sextants. Your existing simple and prime sextants will be converted to awakened sextants at the launch of
Класс, ну короче, у нас теперь войдстоунов всего 4, и они анлокаются супербоссов.
With the new Atlas system as context, we have done a balance pass of all sextant mods. This resulted in a slight reduction to the amount of content or monsters that a given sextant mod introduces to an area. We've removed the Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currency items mod, both because it's busted and because it's incompatible with our future plans for the Archnemesis League content. We've also added a whole bunch of new sextant modifiers.
Добавили новые модификаторы секстантов.
The general intention behind these new mods is that they give a strong benefit while adding extra difficulty, or reward players for specializing into having other leagues present in an area. For example, there's a sextant mod that ensures that all breaches in an area belong to Cellular. So if you can maximize the number of breaches through scarabs, map device modifiers, the Atlas passive tree, or other sextants, then you've got a whole bunch of valuable Cellular breaches in that map. With the removal of watchstones, players would have lost the ability to swap in and out watchstones with different sextant modifiers on them depending on which maps they were running. We like the strategic use of sextants, so we have reintroduced this behavior with a new currency item called the Surveyor's Compass.
Новый currency,
this can be applied to a voidstone with a sextant mod on it to itemize that sextant mod for later use or trade.
Типа, если тебе какой-то хороший мод на секстанте наролился, ты его можешь сохранить с помощью торбы. Окей.
There's no limit on how many you can purchase.
Окей. Это прикольное решение.
You may be wondering what is happening to her Atlas missions. Well, Kirik is taking over from her.
Окей, теперь у нас Кирик вместо Зана. Но робот по-другому.
Kirik has assumed the position of commander, and he has important missions for you to carry out in the Atlas. You open these missions at your map device and can run them just like before.
Так.
However, you won't encounter Kirik inside a map, and you won't be able to apply Kirik objectives to a map itself. Because of this, we have raised the chance that you receive a Kirik Atlas objective when you defeat a map boss. Previously, Zana's missions had completion objectives, but with the removal of the favor system, this stopped mattering. Instead of focusing on completion, Kirik missions now focus more on rewards, and so their purpose is to provide you with additional league content or extra item drops.
Ну, короче, Кирик будет просто больше пропадать. Прикольно.
It's now based on the highest tier map you've completed in this current league. For example, if you completed a tier 16 map, your daily missions will always be high tier maps. Kirik missions can now include
короче, миссии Кирика ролятся в зависимости от того, какой макс-тир карты ты выполнил, в принципе, в лиге. Как только дошел до красных, у тебя сразу красный будет. Все время.
Kirik now sells you maps, much
Продает
like
карты.
Zana did in the past, except there is now a wider variety of outcomes with variance on the prices, so you should probably go and check what he's selling more frequently in case there's a good deal. The items in the window are re-rolled under the same conditions as Zana's previous shop. Kirik can sell maps that come with implicit mods enabling various content. For example, a map that always has a Legion encounter, or maps
Теперь у него имплисты могут быть.
у
У него...
As you play through maps, you'll occasionally find Atlas scouting reports, essentially
Scouting
communication
report,
about important missions from other people who scouted the Atlas and didn't survive. These items can be used like a currency item to re-roll the set of mission maps.
Типа, если кто-то не выполнил миссию или умер там на карте, то она может
guaranteeing a unique map, having all maps be corrupted, always including a Shaper Guardian, Elder Guardian or Conqueror.
Короче, это более ценные миссии Кирика будут. Скаутинг-репорты.
The value here is not only the re-roll of what is offered to you, but also the guarantee of one or
Ну, типа, гарантированно дает какую-то прикольную штуку, типа уникальная карта или гварда и так далее.
Kirik also sells the aforementioned Surveyor's Compass used to itemize sextant mods, as well as everything else Zana previously sold, like specific divination cards.
Surveyor компасы продает, окей.
Despite them not being part of the core Atlas experience anymore, it's still possible to fight Cirrus and the Conquerors to take advantage of their influence and unique item rewards. Tier 14 or higher map bosses now have a chance to drop maps influenced by the Shaper, the Elder, or a random Conqueror. You can also purchase these maps from Kirik. When you enter the map, you'll be met with hordes of influence monsters that can drop influenced items. Upon defeating the map boss, a portal will open to the
короче, обычные инфлюенс-айтемы, они...
Upon death, the Conqueror will drop a fragment. Each Conqueror has their own fragment.
Ага. Ну да, будут дропать фрагменты, 4 фрагмента открывают Сирус. Но он сразу, видимо,
As it's now harder to get influenced items, we've moved plus level gem modifiers into the global mod pool for amulets. So it's now possible to get the powerful
level гемов для всех амулей.
Now that Cirrus and the Conquerors are no longer core
Это
parts of Atlas
круто.
gameplay, they will not drop awakened gems. These gems can now drop.
Я очень доволен, что они это делают.
Archnemesis is a challenge league that reinvigorates fights with rare
Так,
monsters.
Archnemesis. Или
It
контент.
introduces around 60 new monster mods and allows you to customize your rare boss fights to control your level of risk and reward. These mods can be combined in over 35 recipes to create new, more powerful and rewarding mods.
Моды, которые
As you
объединяются
play
друг
through
с
the league, you'll
другом.
discover more recipes and learn how to best utilize them to get the most valuable rewards. When you slay regular rare and magic monsters in the Archnemesis League, they sometimes drop an itemized version of a new Archnemesis monster modifier. You store these in a dedicated inventory panel so they don't
убиваем разных мобов, они иногда дропают моды. И мы встретим 4 монстров, которые заморожены. И можно в них накидать модов. Блин, круто, очень круто, очень круто. То есть ты видишь, что за мод, ты знаешь, какие моды ты в него накидываешь, ты получаешь понятные награды. Круто.
When you empower your second monster, it also has the mod you applied to the first monster.
И с каждым следующим мобом на карте ты типа накапливаешь эти моды. Круто.
The same applies to the third and fourth fights in the area as well. By the time you defeat the fourth monster, you'll have received the first reward 4 times, the second reward 3 times.
И при этом, да, если ты в начале уник положил, то в каждом следующем тоже уник будет падать.
More than half of the available mods are created by combining other mods together on the same monster. As an example of how this works, if you apply both Incendiary and Hasted to the same monster, then in addition to the rewards that these two mods grant, you will also receive an itemized Flamewalker mod upon killing the monster.
То есть при этом еще есть комбинация модов.
These recipe mods yield substantially more dangerous encounters and have more valuable rewards. Even if you're not completing a recipe with your modifiers, you can still combine them to get some ridiculous combinations.
Типа моды еще комбинируются.
Defeating an innocence-touched enemy grants 3 currency rewards and converts all other rewards into currency.
О, прикольно. Он один конвертит все в currency.
Killing a Flamewalker enemy grants 3 weapon rewards. Killing a toxic enemy grants a generic reward plus a gem reward.
И тогда можно,
If you were to
типа,
kill an enemy
настакивать
with
кучу
all four
валюты, например.
modifiers,
Блин,
you get a
круто.
total of 9 currency rewards, each rolled 3 times and dropping the best result. But if you apply the mods in the order mentioned above, then as you kill each of the 4 monsters in the area, you'll receive the earlier rewards multiple times. The end result is the equivalent of getting 60 currency rewards and receiving the best 20 plus 3 regular currency rewards. As you can see from this example, even the basic rewards that offer, say, 3 random weapons are really useful because you can combine them with reward conversion mods to take advantage of their high item counts. We're looking forward to seeing what other types of crazy ways you manage to combine your Archnemesis rewards.
Ну, я видел то,
To
что в
prevent you
Game
having to
сервисный
backtrack,
падает.
there are more than 4 possible locations where you may encounter petrified monsters in each area, but only the first 4 you encounter can be empowered and fought. Archnemesis mods cannot be traded with other players. Your progress is your own.
Archnemesis моды нельзя
A
продавать.
relatively simple one to go alongside all of the new Atlas content in this expansion, and it exceeded our
Ну, короче,
expectations.
чего,
The fights are
суешь
fun, the rewards are
модчиков
punchy,
моды,
and there are a lot of tough
читаешь,
decisions about
умираешь,
which
не
reward
умираешь.
combinations or recipes you can pursue.
Окей.
In Siege of the Atlas, our balance goal is to take 2 very common gameplay archetypes that struggle with endgame content and to buff them so that they're in a much better place compared to other builds.
Так, баланс игры.
The ones we are targeting are hit damage bow characters and handcasting spellcasters.
Да.
If you haven't
Hit-based.
checked out the balance
Okay.
manifesto about these changes that we posted recently, I'd
Кастеры.
encourage you to read all about them in the patch notes that
Yep.
will be posted when the live stream ends. To be clear, this expansion does have a few of the usual nerfs to the most overperforming builds, but for the most part, the majority of balance changes are buffs. The goal is that players who play hit damage bow builds and handcasting spellcasters are significantly more competitive. Alongside Siege of the Atlas, we're introducing 2 new types of stash tab.
О,
One
новый
for
стаж таба.
flasks and one for
Ей.
gems.
О,
A side
фласки,
effect
ема?
of this
Прикольно.
is that you're able to set your regular tabs to have affinity for flasks or gems, regardless of whether you've purchased the new specialized tabs. The
Найс.
gem stash tab allows you to easily
Wow,
store and sort
какой
your
он
collection of
милый,
up to 500
класс.
skill and support gems. By default, it displays all gems stored in the tab, but you can use one of the 4 categories at the top to filter between red,
Класс.
green, blue, and white gems.
Кайфово.
There's a drop-down that allows you to pick your preferred sorting
Можно
method, such as current gem
сортировать.
level, required level, or quality, to easily find whatever gem you're looking for. The Flask Stash tab allows you to store 500 flasks and can be filtered to show life, mana, hybrid, utility, and unique flasks. You can
Найс.
also use the drop-down to change the sort order
Блин,
between item
вот
level
эти
and base
окна
tag and
сортировки,
quality.
это то, чего
This
не
allows you to
хватало
quickly
вообще.
find flasks of a certain type, potential flasks to vendor for glassblowers baubles, or high item level flasks for crafting. Remember that regardless of whether you
Ладно,
purchase
конечно.
these new tabs, you'll still
Но
be
теперь
able to set
можно
up
в бес...
affinities
ну, в
for
смысле,
gems
в
or flasks
обычные,
on your
которые
existing stash tabs.
The tradable, назначать
Alongside
affinity.
the launch of Siege of the Atlas, we are hosting a competitive event where players will race to be the first to kill a trio of bosses. The Maven, the Searing Exile,
Гонка
and the
будет на
Eater of
старте.
Worlds.
Окей.
The event will take place in the hardcore solo self-found Archnemesis League. We have some interesting prizes in store for the winners. Keep an eye on the news next week for more details about how this event will work and what its prizes are.
Nice.
We're almost at the Q&A, but first I'd like to show you the new supporter packs we're releasing today to help fund
Плюс
development
гонка,
of
чат.
future Path of Exile
В
expansions.
сейфе.
Our new packs are called the Worm and Emberkeep supporter packs.
О, ну, прикольная.
Like our recent League packs, there are 3 tiers available, each of which include points equivalent to the cost of the pack, plus many exclusive cosmetic microtransactions like apparition effects, armor sets, weapon skins, forum badges, titles, and social frames. The Worm series comes with an exclusive pet, and the Emberkeep series comes with an exclusive weapon effect. These new packs are in addition to the 2022
Ooh.
core packs that we released recently. Remember to check those out if you haven't already. That concludes the reveal portion of this live stream. Keep an eye on our news next week as we
Круто,
unveil more
круто.
details about the Siege of the
Ну, в
Atlas
Атлас выглядит
expansion and the
круто.
Archnemesis League.
Гонка выглядит
In the
круто.
meantime, these reveals are already live on
Всё
YouTube for you to
отлично.
link to your friends in case they missed the live stream.
Реально,
Please spread the word.
считаю, что
And
нужно
join us
тут
as we explore the Atlas alongside you
хлопать
next week.
клапов, наспамить в чат.
It's now time for the Q&A.
Потому что
If
анонс
you have any
реально
questions about
огонь.
what we've shown you today, please get them ready because I'm about to be joined